Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Umbrella Academy, Season 2, Episode 9. It's called 743. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. A lot to talk about, kind of, with this one, because obviously we left the last episode with this, okay, Vanya's responsible for everything again somehow, and they're all going to try and stop, and it looked like it was too late. There's things I like about how this resolves. It sets up some new things to do in the last couple of... This is the thing, by the end of this episode, they stop it. Vanya does not blow up and cause World War III, essentially. So, that's good.
That is objectively good, yes.
I will say, I liked... So basically, the siblings who are there try to stop her. One by one try to go up the hallway with all these shock waves hitting them, all these sound waves hitting them.
I'm going to get out of the way here. This is probably my biggest complaint with this episode is this gave me a headache. I don't suffer from epilepsy or anything like that, but just the intensity of the bright light, the how long it went on for, because it was a good 5 to 7 minutes or something like that. It was just giving me a headache.
I didn't have an issue with that. My only complaint really with this trying to walk up the hallway stuff is that I couldn't hear a single line of dialogue that was been spoken by anyone.
That too, yeah. I
actually turned on the subtitles at one point because Klaus was saying something to Diego, and I was like, "What's he saying?" And he was saying that he looks like Antonio Banderas with the long hair. I did not get that. It was basically his version of, if in case you die, there's something I really need to tell you, but it was just something stupid. So mildly amusing, but I had to rewind it and put on the subtitles to see. I mean, not that we rewind per se, but you know what I mean. Go back.
Yes.
To hear, and I turned them off. But it was just that scene, the sound of everything just made it inaudible. Anything that was being said. So maybe something in the sound mix could have been tweaked a bit to.
Yeah, it was probably just really muddy. Because I didn't catch that line. But given that it was giving me a headache, there was no way I was going back and watching more of it.
That is fair. What I do like about this, though, I like the idea of this being Ben's time to shine. I was actually shocked that they decided to essentially, quote unquote, kill him off later on in the episode, because when it was clear that none of them can get to her, because I think Alison tries first, then Diego tries. Diego tries with a knife to sort of crawl, using that as a sort of, a pick, essentially, an ice pick almost going across the floor.
Yeah.
Or a rock pick, whatever. So that was all fine, and I actually had the thought that maybe Klaus is the one who's going to pull it off, because he can maybe send in a ghost or something to do something to let him in, and that'll be, and he fails. And I went to Ben, I was like, you know what, Ben, by his nature, because he's just this ghost that hangs around with Klaus, is definitely the lesser sibling, just because of where he is in the plot and what function he serves. So I thought, this is actually a really nice way to make him feel important, to give him some big kind of thing that he can solve. He can be important. He can speak to Vanya face to face as well, which is a really nice thing. He really gets to do that with anyone other than Klaus. So I was actually a little bit miffed when he started fading away, because being inside of her is hurting him and sort of making him go to heaven or whatever. And I kind of felt okay, all right.
It was a little frustrating, and we only just started exploring stuff with Ben in the last 2 episodes, and I'm like, really? Now you're gonna kill him? Give us some time. You just introduced stuff that we can actually play with and do with Ben as a character beyond just snarky comments at Klaus. Which, don't get me wrong, I've enjoyed whenever they've happened, but some actual plot of his own.
And before it got to the point where he's actually started to fade away, and the scene's done quite well, him saying, "Can you hug me? Because I've not felt being hugged in years, 17 years, give or take." And she hugs him. I mean, it was all very sweetly done, but I kind of agree. I felt like before it got to this point, and I thought, this is his big moment, and I felt, this makes sense, he's getting a big moment, because it feels like we've actually started to build him as a real character who can interact with people again through the possession, through these other things, through him, being attracted to someone, which, it was played for jokes, but it felt like they were giving him more attention. And instead of feeling like they're really elevating him for a purpose, I mean, I guess the purpose is so we'll care when he dies, but I felt like there was more to do here. I mean, the last few episodes made me kind of like Ben and made me want to see more of him. And
it did enough. Not that I cared enough when he died. Or what I should say is, they made me care that I don't want him dead. I like the character well enough, but they did enough in the last few episodes to make me more intrigued at the possibilities of what they can do with Ben. Instead of that overwhelmed the emotion of losing.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. I'm talking about the prospect, because there's I think he's an interesting character in the sense that to use him effectively, you have to get creative because you've sort of set up these rules where he can't interact with other characters unless you do something in the plot to all of a sudden, oh, now everyone else can see him now, so maybe he can interact. But at least so far, you've introduced this set of rules where to use him effectively, you have to get creative and use the mechanics you've set up to do it in kind of, and this is why this felt like a special moment before the death itself, because I was kind of thinking, oh, this is a really intriguing way to kind of bring him into another character story, have an interaction that we otherwise couldn't. And this sets up the idea that if he can go into anyone, then maybe in the future he goes into other people, other siblings or other characters that he needs to interact with or speak to, or this idea that maybe he's been this secret weapon this whole time. This idea that the person who can actually calm Vanya down is the one who can actually go inside and speak to her in her head, in her safe place.
It's just interesting as well, the idea that it wasn't just Klaus he could possess.
Yeah.
I mean, it technically is safely, I guess, because of Klaus's ability. But the idea that if we take away the fact that this kills him, which is the part that we're actually disappointed by, the idea that he can actually possess other things, how creative can that be used?
Yeah. Which at that point, because I felt like it was an ability it was introducing, it's like, oh, hey, he can now be effective in lots of ways and interact a bit more because he can maybe possess certain people or blah blah. So I guess what we're saying here ultimately, we're going around a lot of avenues to get to the main point here, which is it just feels like potential was just shut down the toilet.
Pretty much, yeah. I felt like we were trying to be nicer than that, but yeah, if you're going to be blunt about it, yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
That's kind of how I felt with the death itself happened. It felt very bittersweet because instead of being emotionally impacted by the death, all I could think was, but I was just starting to get into what they could do with him.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because it was, like, objectively, I think it's quite a good scene. You know, like the actual goodbye, I thought it was really well handled. But the frustration of losing the potential outweighed the caring of losing the character.
And given all I've done with Vanya is the exact same thing as last season, I would have much easily swallowed Vanya dying instead of Ben.
Yeah. Maybe Ben could have possessed Vanya's body going forward and Vanya just went goodbye.
Maybe. So yeah, that was kind of, because it's funny because this episode actually has a scene that feels so out of left field in terms of something that it does later on with Hargreeves.
Oh yes,
all right, so well to the point where, so we'll talk about this now. Actually, we'll just go there. So Kennedy assassination attempt happens and that does go through as history knows it, and obviously Hargreeves has been kind of, there's like a decoy at the scene for Diego to go and intercept and all the rest of it. And
it's interesting that it still leaves it a mystery as to who the shooter was. Yeah, because obviously it sets up a wall that it's five and then it's not.
Yeah, but I also like the way they shot it, where you never actually see the car. Well, you see the car from a distance, but you never see Kennedy. You never see the people in the car. It's all this kind of like around it because we know the history. It's kind of we've
all seen the video.
The pocket of real life is kind of ignored because it's something we all know. We're just looking at the wacky stuff around it that's unique to the show. But there's this decoy. There's a note that says, what did it say? Told you so, or
I think it's
like
told you so.
Yeah. But no, the actual drama of all that, and then just like cutting to the characters in the window looking down, the impact was great, right? And you go to this meeting where Hargreeves, who has been playing with us that he might be a bad guy, and even the mum kind of like leaves him because he's not being honest. He can't open up to her. All that stuff.
Yeah, that was last episode, right? We had that sequence of her rummaging through the room.
Yeah, that was last. I think we did. I think we forgot to talk about it, but yeah, that was last episode.
We did, because I noticed there was the blueprint for the televator in there, which I think in the comics that's what they use for teleportation and time travel, not the briefcases in the comics. It's that machine.
So, but he goes to his meeting with these Illuminati folk, right? And they're like, because he's like, Kennedy was not to be touched. It sounds like he was actually against the assassination, and they were all like, nah, it was going to happen. He's made too many enemies.
This solved the problem.
Yeah. And it's all just kind of whatever. And the scene, it was interesting to a point just because, okay, so it's confirming that Hargreeves isn't actually the soulless monster that he's sometimes perceived to be. He's actually got a little bit of a noble sense in him. And then they make a sort of threat or whatever as he's leaving, or I can't remember what the line was, but he goes to make this motion where his hand goes up to the back of his head, and I actually in my head went, this is like a Scooby-Doo villain about to take off his mask.
Do you know what? It's worse than that. It's more specific for me.
Oh, go on.
This is a Doctor Who villain.
Oh, I knew it was going to be Doctor Who.
No, but it's a very specific one called the Slitheen. And it's that is what it looked like. The visual of the unzipping, shall we say?
Yeah, and they never show. You see from behind this alien that you know, and maybe that's why he's got Luther on the moon. Maybe he's trying to phone home or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's it. They mentioned that in exchange for him giving them rocket technology, they'll leave alone the dark side of the moon for him to do whatever he's doing on there.
Yeah. I think the threat is, if you don't keep your mouth shut, we'll tell everyone what you really are. Given their reactions to him taking off his skin and seemingly killing all of them, I don't think they actually knew what it was. What they think he was clearly something that they thought was a big deal to him, and then he turned around and went, "Oh, you think that's a threat?
Oh, please, yeah."
You don't know what I am. So we have an alien. Well, I mean, I'm assuming alien.
That's the strong implication.
I mean, they could swerve us and say demon or something, but I'm going with alien. For now. I mean, so much of this has all been about moon and space, and sending chimps to space, and there's a lot of space stuff going on with it. So, no, this series is really good and really interesting, and one of the most exciting things, maybe the most single exciting thing it's done all season in terms of a reveal.
Quite possibly, yeah.
I don't think anything else even comes close. Which brings us back around to this conflicted nature of the season for me, where you've got something else where I'm feeling I'm just squandering potential in another character, and then you give me this scene and I'm like, oh, this is actually quite interesting and exciting. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's funny because it highlights some of the other problems in the show, or the season specifically, because before we started recording, because I watched this yesterday, so people just give me a quick rundown on the
so did
plots.
I watched it yesterday as well.
That's true, yeah, just a quick rundown on the plots that happened, just to quick jog the memory. I went through them all, but forgot to mention this scene. I went, oh, don't forget the ending, the Hargreeves scene, and you went, that's not the ending.
No, it isn't. No.
and in my head, nothing after this happened. This is the big dramatic, shock ending of the episode, and whatever happened after this, that Peter was the stuff with the handler. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that did happen, but it didn't stick in my brain anywhere near as much as this, which highlights a problem with that plot.
Yeah, the cliffhanger for the end of the episode is actually the handler saying they're going to war, because basically the switchboard, the infinite switchboard lights up like it's never lit up before because something's happening, it's breaking the timeline. And it's actually the kid, it's Harlan, Sissy's son, who goes full powers, deflects a bullet, which then goes back and kills the dad. And, Sissy's sticking up for herself, which... on paper, I get, it's her finally sticking up to her husband, and it's gonna have this empowering moment. I've just cared so little about all of these characters all season that I didn't really care on the scene.
Yeah,
but on paper, it's fine. This
was another frustrating moment for me, because this was almost the first moment where the dad, I want to say Carl, I can't remember for sure, but I'm gonna say Carl, didn't seem completely terrible at first, because it's the kid says Vanya's name. It's obviously the first time he's ever spoken out loud. And then is having a fit, and he's like, no, okay, this is beyond us. We need to I'm taking you where you need to go. And obviously Sissy's it's like, oh, don't you take him away from me, and is reacting really badly. But for once, I don't think this is him just being malicious or spiteful. I think he's genuinely like, no, we cannot handle this, we need help. And that was kind of interesting, like to play it that way for a moment. And then obviously she gets the gun, and it just devolves back into him. Oh well, I'll take the gun and I'll shoot you first. So
Yeah, it is interesting that Vanya seems to have passed the power on to someone, which is
it seems to be
wrinkle.
Slightly different though as well, because obviously maybe it's still an evolution of the same thing, but it obviously manifests as like a shield here.
Yeah. Could that just be a strong wave?
I mean, you could tell me it's a wave just of a sandwich pushing it back out, and I'll accept that. It was just the visual of it very for me, it looked like a protective shield all the way around him. It wasn't just in the one spot.
Yeah, no, you may be right.
I could be wrong.
You may be right. I don't know, I'm just guessing based on where the power came from. And she's like, yeah, rally the troops, we're going to war. So we're having this conflict, seemingly for the final episode is going to be the family taking on the commission, and it's I don't know how I feel about it. I feel kind of weird about the whole thing, because it feels very.
It feels like a plot that should be the season 3 plot.
No, I would say the opposite. I would say it should have been a plot that we've been dealing with for season 3, because most of season 2 has felt kind of pointless.
What I mean though by this is that throwing it in here at the end to deal with for one episode feels my problem. Like, it should be a full season plot. I mean, if that's season 2's plot, or at this point, it should be season 3's plot. Is kind of what I meant.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you told me if this should have been the plot for the whole time and what we've been building to, that fixes my complaint.
That's the thing.
The opposite way.
I think the cliffhanger at the end of this, I don't necessarily think it feels like we're going to squish it all into one episode, in the sense, I mean, technically we are, but more in the sense that this cliffhanger should feel like a big deal, that we've been building to this cliffhanger all season. Right? I don't necessarily think there needs to be more to it in terms of the actual, like, I don't think the conflict that we're going to get in the final episode is going to be something that needs to be stretched out anymore. It's just that when she says we're going to war, it's like, it's not like there's been tension bubbling about, like, them having to fight the commission all season. There's just been kind of
literally most of them didn't know it existed until last episode when
Diego was
when Diego came back and told them all about it.
Yeah, like, it's been kind of a, her plot, the handler's plot's been kind of their own thing. It's tied into Lila, obviously. Lila, this episode, it looks like Sissy's going to have to murder her child because she thinks she's discovering that she's behind the death of her parents, but then it reveals no, the file says 5 is the one. And notably, they did hide the whatever agent was actually doing the shooting. They were hiding the face back in the flashback whenever we saw it before.
And there was a point of the stamp, the name on the stamp was, I think, the guy who's the goldfish. I think that's who that is.
Yeah.
But obviously, it shows us the little flashback of the handler stamping it herself. Yeah,
so we know she's behind it. And this gives Lila a more personal reason to want to kill 5 and all that. It's kind of fine. Like, that's like, because I like the Hargreeves reveal, of course, in this episode, and I actually quite like the Fives and Luther plot. Like, I thought that was kind of fun and wacky. And Luther throwing the fire extinguisher, whatever it was, into the portal from season 1's first episode, and that hitting him here was a fun beat. And or even just when there are, is like, do you want to do it, or shall I? Like, yeah, please go ahead. And then he kicks him in the balls, and Luther's just sort of standing there.
It was a fun, inventive fight with them teleporting that didn't go over the top, but did just enough that it was interesting.
No, I like the camera going around Luther as he's in pain, squealing. I like the cutting to the little girls thinking she was seeing fireworks behind the fence because of the flashes of the. This was kind of pitch perfect humor for this show. I think this is exactly kind of the thing I'm here for. I was into it, and it made me miss why Luther's not been interacting with as many people, because when Luther's played this way for comedy, it actually is very delightful. He's kind of
played as the dumb straight guy.
Yeah.
It is a bit funny, and the whole episode for this plot, with the two Fives trying to pit Luther against the other, essentially, and him kind of being gullible enough to fall for it from both of them every single time. It's amusing.
Yeah. I had fun with that stuff. And it's so funny because, like, if the show was just going to be fun and just be sort of this, like, I wouldn't necessarily find the problems as great as I do. But the problem is it slows down and takes a lot of the plots. I don't want to say super seriously, because it doesn't. It almost doesn't care about the plots without actually doing anything in place of them sometimes.
It's hard to quite pin your finger on it, isn't it? It's like they kind of go through the motions with the plots, and they're like, well, we actually want to do this and that, but we know we need to have this amount of plot, and then spend too much time doing the plot, but without caring as much.
Yeah. I do think there's several plots and characters that have been mishandled this season. I mean, I think that's very abundantly clear, but this time we're in episode 9 of the season. Which,
do you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. Did not realize this was episode 9. When you said the introduction, I wanted to correct you and had to just stop myself, because I was 100% sure this was episode 8. I was like, no, there can't only be one left.
Yep, only one left. We just got the one last episode.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see how it ends. I mean, there's definitely been things to like throughout the season, but there's been so many pacing problems and problems with character plots, just feeling kind of like we're going through the motions.
It's weird. The season almost frustrates me more here. Now we are almost at the end, because there's been things in these last 2 or 3 episodes specifically that I've really liked, And I'm like, no, okay, I can see the way to shape this season around these things that have been handled well, and this to be a fantastic season. And that almost annoys me more than just being disappointed by it the whole way through, because I can see the potential for what this could have been.
And I think part of the big problem as well is that not only would I say you should cut out 2 episodes of this at least. I mean, I could look at this season as it is, and unless somehow the last episode makes a lot of things more relevant, this could have been a 5-episode season with what they had.
Easily. And there are other shows that are like this style of show that manage to just ignore the main plot for an episode and do something else entirely. And I think it goes back to kind of what we were saying in the first couple of episodes of this season, is that this show needs to not have every plot in every episode. It needs to just take some time away from things and explore the side episodes. For example, we could have had a full episode with Allison and Ray and done that stuff that has no bearing on the main plot really, but just had a really strong episode on that. And honestly, probably would have been one of the best episodes if you just take 3 episodes worth of content that we've had from them and smush it into one. I think that probably would have gone better. The only reason I think that they didn't do that is they really wanted this daily countdown thing with the episodes.
Yeah, where they're determined to fit this format that they've put upon themselves that honestly just kind of get in the way.
And was really forgettable to the point that we didn't notice that we were at the day of the assassination until 10 minutes into the last episode.
Yeah, that was really, really weird. It's frustrating. I don't know. We'll see. I think we'll just save our points now for the last episode. See how it wraps things up. But there's been a lot of things, and I don't know if I specifically said this last episode, but the reveal that Vanya's behind everything. If you go back to those first couple episodes of us saying, it feels like they're just doing the same plot again. Like that reveal just kind of.
Oh, I'm sure we spoke about that last episode.
It felt like, oh, okay, no, it was just they're just doing the same thing. Okay,
it really was.
And don't get me wrong, yes, they did it an episode early, so now that we can have more stuff after because they've averted the disaster, but that's not different enough. Condensing your season 1 plot into 9 episodes and then doing one new plot for the last episode is not enough of a change, I don't think, for me.
No.
So there you go. Let us know what you thought of the penultimate episode of the season in the comments. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates if you want to support the show and everything we do. Of course, liking is a big part of that on YouTube, but you can do that over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?